morning. Great to be with y'all. Let's say very excited to be here and very excited to be at this game. Let's say to be in a New Year's sixth game, 5 years in a row. Very proud of our program, very proud of our kids and what they've accomplished, and extremely proud of this team. If people asked us at the beginning of the year when we were 3-2, what do you have to play for? Well, this is what you have to play for. Just because you lose a game here and there doesn't mean your purpose, and you're always trying to be the best you can be, but things can be achieved. That's why I'm very proud of this football team and what they've been able to accomplish, and being able to come to the Orange Bowl and one of the great bowl games ever. Like I said, I became a true Florida State fan watching the 79 and 80 games against Oklahoma back in the day and watching Ron Simmons. And I'd follow Coach, I said this in an earlier thing, I'd follow Coach Bowden because he was at West Virginia, and as a little kid I watched him coach, and he was at Florida State, started watching, and I remember watching those Orange Bowls as a little kid at night when I was supposed to be in bed the whole second half because it always started at 8 o'clock, and 10 o'clock and 9:30 was bedtime. So you were staying up, sneaking and watching the games, but it was one of the great things. And back, you had to go to school on the second back then. Yeah, they put us right back to school. We don't have these long vacations like they have now. But just watching and became a Florida State fan, of course, was around the Bowdens my whole life. But this is what you play for. To have an honor to play in a game of this prestige and be here 5 years in a row and keep that streak alive, and what our kids have accomplished. And to me, sometimes the greatest accomplishments come when you're not, some of your goals are taken away and you find out what's inside you. You find out what's inside your character and who you are, and often brings you very much closer together as a team. And I think it did. I think it made some of our young guys really realize the importance and the roles in which they had, because we have a very young football team. As I say, 9 seniors on the football team, and some of those young guys are being counted upon early. But the importance of those roles now, every play mattered and everything that went on, and our seniors did a great job to keep educating those kids, and our young guys did a great job of allowing us to coach them, develop them, push them, and then really establish the great football down the stretch in which we played, and very proud of those guys, and this is where we end up. So now the key is you got to finish. We always got to finish the season. We always want to finish on a great note. We got to go play well. We got a tremendous opponent in front of us. I mean, Michigan's one of the brand names in college football. They had a tremendous season. Could very easily been in the playoff. Great coach. Defensively, they're outstanding. Every number, they're first or second in the country in every statistical category across the board. Offensively, scored a lot of points. Throw the football around. Great tight ends, playmakers outside, big tailbacks, offensive line, special teams are very well. So we're going to have our hands full, but we got to finish, and we're looking forward to that opportunity, and enjoyed our time down here in Miami, Fort Lauderdale this whole week. Kids have enjoyed their time, practiced very well, and had a great time experiencing with the boys and girls clubs and things that went on, and getting the exposure out there too, which I think is incredibly important for these guys to be able to go out and do that. And as I say, in our world today, I think an athlete's role may be greater than it's ever been. I think the turmoil in which some of our country is in right now, I think athletics and sports is one of the things that pulls everyone together. All races, all creeds, all religions, everybody together kind of unifies to watch a sporting event. And I think understanding the role and impact that our athletes can have on young kids in our society today, I think it's as great as it's ever been. And I think our guys understanding that, and the Orange Bowl's done a great job of exposing us to that and those young kids, and we do that in our program a lot. So I think the whole picture of being here, I think is very, very rewarding. And I think it's very eye-opening for our kids to see the importance of which they can have and the role in which they can have, not just as athletes, but as people in general in our society. So we're very excited to be here, looking forward to a great game, and like I say, waiting for, now this is the nervous time. You'll wait till tomorrow, huh? Question?
We have microphones on the side, so if you raise your hand, we'll go ahead and take those. You go right here.
Jimbo, you talk a lot about the way the season started 3-2 and how it's been a brilliant finish. How important is it to finish this year knowing that you're trying to avoid going winless in 3 straight bowl games for the first time in school history?
Don't ever think of it. It means nothing. The past means nothing. You only play in the future. And if you do, you do. You get what's the key. It's not about winning or losing. It's about playing your best and being the best you can be. And that's what we got to do. And we worry about the results when they come. But because what we've established is our program, 5 straight games, 77 and 17. National championships, conference championships, program's in great shape. And when you play in big games, you win some, you lose some. But that's what you just stand up for the competition for. That's not a factor at all.
If you can please identify yourself.
Hi, Janine Edwards. Hi, Coach.
Hello.
What's the most profound or interesting thing a player has said to you in regards to your season, the way it unfolded, or this game in particular?
I don't think, none of them really, there was no profound moment. There was no really profound statement. It's just that guys looked at themselves and said, you know what? We have a term we tell our guys, and, you know, the teacher looks at you and says, you know, you think my work is good? No, it's not good enough. Coach looks at you and says, you know, Coach, I think I'm playing good. Coach says, no, you need to play better. There's a term we usually call go higher. And what it means is whatever someone questions you, sometimes you don't always see it out of yourself, but there's more potential, more ability for you to play at a different level. Our kids just looked at each other, and it was that term. I said, you know something, we got to take our game higher. We got to improve on everything we do in every aspect. And there was no profound moment as far as guys really coming to say. Some of the seniors did and said, you know, how do we communicate to some of our young guys how much we need them and how that is? But that's a constant educational process, but I think is one of the things I think is lacking in our society today is communication. Not because people can, you know, you don't talk at people, you talk to people. And I think our guys and our leadership did a great job of that with our young guys and getting to understand that, how to take their game higher with pushing them, without making them mad and realize that they were, you know, trying to berate them, but they were just trying to get them challenged to go up to that level, and I think that's what our leadership did.
Hi, Coach. Tim Reynolds with the AP. Something in your opening statement sort of triggered this. When you said that sports can kind of be a unifying thing right now in society, I'm just curious, and these are obviously unusual times. Do you find yourself talking big picture, outside of football, outside of the sport world, with your team maybe now more than ever before?
I don't know if we've always done that, because I've always believed you had that role, but we are very conscientious of it and what the impact you can have. And I use Travis Rudolph for an example. Life's about making decisions, trying to make the right decisions. And you know, Travis was on every talk show, every morning show, everything across the country. And we often talk in our program. I tell him, I said, you know, need you to be a hero this week. Well, hero, everybody thinks you got to go out and you got to do something extravagant. No, hero to me is somebody who does their job every day, doesn't look for a reward, doesn't look for any recognition, just does whatever he has to do or she has to do that's right. And I said, there's a hero that puts you all in one of your seats. There's a mom, a dad, a grandmother, an aunt, an uncle, somebody who worked 2 jobs, 3 jobs, took you everywhere you got, didn't have a lot, and sacrificed for you to have an opportunity that made them better than them. And I said, so being a hero is just doing what's right and never looking for anything. And Travis said, you know, because guys want to be, you know, I want to be the hero of the game. I want to make the game-winning play. He said, Coach, he said, all I did was went over and had lunch with somebody. I said, yeah, you saw a little boy sitting on the side who was by himself, and you said, you know something, I want to go over and he just looks lonely. I want to do something right and spend some time with him. And all of a sudden you get recognized across the country for it. I said, that's what life's about. And I think that's the thing that we constantly try to talk to them about. Just do what's right. You may not make an impact, but you may impact one person's life. That's all that matters. And constantly trying to educate them and understand how the impact you can have, because they often don't see it. Heck, I don't see it. As a head football coach, the way people say you're the head football coach of Florida State. Well, okay, that's just what I do. It's who I am. I'm a normal person like everybody else. I got the same issues, same problems. My kids don't listen to me at the house. I got dirty house and everything else. They're trying to get the bills paid on time, making sure that's paid. I mean, we're all the same. And I think once they realize, because we see ourselves as normal people, but I said sometimes the impact you can have as a student athlete on young people can really turn their life around. And I think we try to spend a lot of time in that regard, because athletics is one of the things in our world that's looked at as unified.
Coach, Mark Rick said last night he's heard the term meaningless bowl game a lot this season. He goes, I can assure you it's not meaningless to us. Is that the sort of thing you're talking about? And also, how much does conference pride have to play in trying to win a bowl?
Well, I mean, you want to play for your conference, but there is no such thing. If you're keeping score, it's not meaningless. You play your tails off. I mean, it's competition. That's your job. That's what you're supposed to do. I don't get the meaningless part either. There's no such thing as meaningless bowl game. I said I think that's a product of our playoff. And I said that was going to happen, and I don't mean this to y'all. I think that's what the media has created a little bit. Because it's playoff. You guys act like it's playoff or nothing. That you win 10, 11 games, beat your rivals, go play an Orange Bowl or a Sugar Bowl or a Cotton Bowl or whatever bowl. I mean, the bowl in Orlando, I think the Russell Athletic Bowl, and all those games all matter. What is wrong with that? And for college football, one of the great things about college football is not everyone ends on a loss. Everyone can, and that's how a lot of the programs in college football were built, was on those games and winning bowl games and going to bowl games and going to sites. The bowl games, I think, is one of the things that we better be really, really careful with all this playoff stuff, that we don't push away in this world, because we're all caught up in a championship. And then you think about it, all we talk about is Tuesday, who's in the bowl ranking. I mean, who's in the playoff rankings. Who cares? Go play, be the best you can be where you end up. You want it, that's where your ultimate goal wants to be, there's no doubt. But these games all mean something. I think they mean more than ever right now. And I hope we don't push that away, because we're going to destroy the great traditions of college football if we do.
Can you talk about the ACC and where that ranks now?
Well, I think the ACC is as good a conference as there is. I think there's a great conference out there, but you look up and down, you look at the draft picks, you look at the players in the NFL, you look at how in the last 4 or 5 years, the non-conference game, the championship game, we won a national championship. Clemson's played for one. They're in a playoff again. We were in a playoff 2 years. We were in it twice. Clemson's been in it twice. Louisville was right on the edge of going in it this year. They've had a Heisman Trophy winner. Pitt, the games, Pitt's won at Penn State. I mean, this conference is good top to bottom as any conference in America. And I know everybody, I've played in a lot of them. I've played against them all. I know, I'm telling you, the travel, the games, the environments. It's a tremendous conference, and it's one of the best ones. And I'm not saying we're the best, but I'm also saying we're as good as anybody else too. I don't think there's as big a difference out there as y'all want to make it to be. I think there's some really good leagues, but I think the ACC is as good as anybody out there.
We're going to go with your reminder to identify yourself.
Hey Coach, Ashley Wong with WCTV. What's been the approach this week as far as entering the bowl week, and have you changed things up to the way you've entered a bowl week the last 2 years?
Well, the first 4 we won, so why would you change up when we lost last week? We fumbled it at Oregon. Last year we lost a quarterback. So we played pretty good. I mean, that was some of the reasons in which we lost games, but you don't panic and change everything. We always constantly change how you prepare the week and what you do. There's tweaks and turns every year, but the constant of what we do and how we do things is very similar, and because we believe in what we do and our practice schedule, our routines, and the things we do. I mean, you got to go out there and play good teams. And the first 4 we won were all magical, and it had nothing to do with preparation before. You got to go play well, and we were right there in the Oregon game 2 years ago. Just fumbled the football. And last year we lost a quarterback early, and we got him back, and he played with a broken foot. I mean, so that was a big impact on what we did. So, I mean, we've had great practices, and the same thing we've done all of our careers. When I was at LSU, it was the same routine. We were here, very similar routine. What Coach Bowden did for 35 years, he's one of the best bowl coaches ever. So, I think it's a pretty good routine.
We're going to go up front here.
Jimbo, I'm just curious, have you shown the team or talked about your Miami game this year down in Hard Rock Stadium and used that at all as a teaching point or a talking point?
For the game? No, I mean, because the regular season game, I mean, when we come down there a lot, it's always, when you come there to Hard Rock, man, it's always, man, the games have always been dynamic there. We've been fortunate to come out there on top the last couple, but they've all been very close. But teaching points about playing hard and playing every play, and you don't know which play can make a difference. I mean, that's the first time I'd ever won a game on a block PAT. I mean, it was amazing.
I mean, in terms of that Miami game and how it unfolded, was there anything that you wanted to revisit and go back with your team about just how they fought back? Or
Well, no, because that happened a lot. But we talk about that when it happens a lot, and then we revisit, but not just because we're in the stadium. I mean, because the opponent's different. But those lessons we kind of try to incorporate as we go throughout the season.
We're on the left.
Jimbo, you've said before how every team has a 1-year life cycle.
Exactly right.
No matter what happens tomorrow, what are your reflections on this team and what they came?
It's funny you say that, but that's what we asked them. How do you want to be remembered? How do you want to be remembered and you finish? And this is the last time this group will ever be together. And that's really a sad thing when you really think about it. No football team, the life expectancy is 1 year because everything changes. Some people move in and out, coaches move in and out, things happen. And but I think it's a team that has very high character, very resilient. I think it was a great example in today's time where, as I say, I say you're in the Xbox world or the PlayStation world. When the game isn't going well, you hit restart and start the season over and you do all that stuff. That's what our kids are in. I'm not playing. I'm not going to wait to play. I'm going to transfer. I'm going to leave. I'm not going to do this. That's the point I was making earlier about you have a couple losses, okay, maybe your national championship goals aren't there. What do you got to play for? You got to play for your pride, your school, and who you are. They're keeping score, and every time you walk out there to play. And I think that takes great care. I think even more so today because of social media, because of how you're criticized, how the things that are brought about in our world today on athletes that are 10 times greater than ever were even 10 years ago, let alone 20 or 30 years ago when you had those seasons. I mean, you know, one of Florida State's greatest seasons that people ever revere, in my opinion, the team they respect is the '89 team that lost 2 games to Southern Miss and Clemson to open the season and then went 10-2 and won a bowl game. that team has thought about, I think this team has a lot of those same qualities. It lost a couple games early, then has made a heck of a run to get back to a major bowl game. And I think it will be revered as a team that had a lot of high character, a lot of morals, and a lot of, I don't know, for lack of a better word, just pure guts and grit. And it was very good to see in today's time because, like I said, a lot of kids want to sell it in. You know, I can't win a championship, so what am I going to play for? Well, you play for your pride and who you are, and I think it's going to be remembered in that way. It is in my mind, anyway.
Back there, yes.
About Angelique Shingelis, Detroit News. Earlier this year, ESPN asked a bunch of coaches for a one-word description of Jim Harbaugh. You paused and said, interesting. After spending a little bit more time with him, can you develop that thought a little bit?
Yeah, I like Jim. I have no problem. I mean, I think he's great. He speaks what's on his mind, what he does. And when he does what he thinks is best for Michigan. And that's what all of us do. We have to do what's best for Florida State or Florida or Georgia, whoever we coach. You know what I'm saying? I think Jim does that. And I think he promotes his program and does a great job in that regard. He's obviously very successful. He's also very intelligent, or he wouldn't have the success in the things he's doing. And I enjoy being around him. I like him.
How formidable of an opponent is he in recruiting now, especially in the States?
We run into each other a couple times. I mean, we ran into each other this year. I mean, sometimes it's whether we're up north or down there. I mean, but Michigan's a brand name now. I mean, not just him. I mean, you know, Michigan is a school that people want to go to. They're a brand name, but Jim does a great job. He's a relentless guy. And we don't bump into each other a lot, I mean, in recruiting, but we do a couple times, and they do a great job.
Any more questions? We'll go right here.
Jimbo, as far as the way you guys ended the year 4-0, but it seems like this was a kind of stretch where you saw this team grow up because you saw them have big wins, you saw them have a game against Florida where they were able to pull away, and then of course the game against NC State were able to come back and hold on. What's it been like to see this team grow up over the last month and kind of learn how to close out and finish and jump out to strong starts as well?
Yeah, I go back all the way to the Miami game, like Janine was talking about. That was a game, you're talking about going 3-2 and going on the road to play your arch rival who's undefeated. And it seems like every year we play Miami, they're undefeated when we play them. I mean, every year we play them, it's like that, and it gets to be a dog fight, and we come out. But I think it goes back to them. Going on the road, and then you saw the perseverance to go and give up a late score, and then go have a block PAT to win the game, and then people don't realize the kickoff and being able to get that first down right afterwards, because they had us pinned back now, and if we'd have kicked off and their field goal kicker at great range, if we'd had to punt, we'd have probably lost that game with a field goal. They're having to go get a first down even after that. I mean, I go back to then. I think that was a huge point, going on the road and being able to do that in that regard, big time. And then coming down the stretch, and even the Clemson game, battling back, getting ahead. They got a quick start, and we got ahead, and they battled back and went back and forth to a one-score game. And you know, Clemson is a great team, and just coming down in so many different avenues, just proud of it. I mean, I really am. I mean, it's what you do as a coach, and like I say, sometimes just because you don't win a national championship as a coach, you're very rewarded because you know why. You know these kids get it, they're understanding, and they're going to be successful in life because of their perseverance and their character. And people think that's coaches cliche stuff. That's not. That's why you're in the business. We all want to win. Don't get me wrong. We all want to win games. It's based on that. But it's when you watch kids really get it, and you can see it in their eyes that they take responsibility for it, and then they change. Because change in our world, even for you, me, everybody, it's hard to sit there and say there's something wrong and I got to change and I got to go higher, as we say. And watching them do that, I'm being extremely proud of them.
Back in the talents.
Allison Posey, WTXL. Jimbo, as a team that gained momentum as the year went on, with a month off, how do you get that momentum back? I mean, do you, or what do you do to get it back?
That's the challenging thing, keeping things interesting, keeping the competitiveness. What you got to do, it's all about competition. And we're a team, when we practice now, we do good on good. In other words, what I'm saying, it's ones on ones. We have our scout team work, but every Tuesday and Wednesday during the season, it's like we did down here. And the other 9 days we practice, we had ones on ones and inside and 7-on-7 and team. I mean, so we keep that. It's about competition and creating that sharpness, I guess, you know, trying to get, because sometimes you get in the law when you're going against scout team guys and not pressing them. And our guys, as soon as you get the good guys on the good guys, the starters on the starters, it doesn't matter. You say, okay, be smart. Well, testosterone starts flying, ego starts flying, and competition starts flying. They start getting after it, and that's how you do it. And we practice that way a lot, and did a great job in that way. And I hope that we can take it to the field. But that's one of the challenges. I mean, that's the thing about college football. I mean, you go a month. I mean, you're not the same team. I mean, I wish we'd have played the next week. The way the season ended, I wish we were playing right after the Florida game. I'd have been happy. We were playing well. I mean, but sometimes you need that time. I mean, it's just, that's one of the unique things about, I mean, you go back to some of the great coaches, even Bear Bryant and all those guys. I mean, they were all 500. They were 500 bowl coaches. If you really go back and look at it. Most people, Coach Bowden was one of the greatest ever. He had that run for a long time. His winning percentage is probably as high as anybody's. And there's some other guys, but that's a challenge. And then you got to play good teams, and that month off, it's a difficult thing.
Over. Let's go right here.
Coach, everybody's always talking about keeping up with Saban. What did you learn from him, and how important is resources and staffing that he has? And is that something you bargain for when you're doing a
all
contract?
the time? I'm gonna tell you something now. That's the key. You can say it all you want. You gotta have the off-field stuff and what goes on and behind-the-scenes things. Or what's different in the NFL? If you really look at the NFL, how many teams can really win a Super Bowl? 6 or 8 of them? When you really get down to it? Organization, structure, culture, and you create that by the resources in which you have. And we think, well, they get good players, they can go. No. Let me tell you something, and that matters. That is a key component. But having the resources behind the scenes and the people to develop your things and film breakdowns and issues and recruiting and development of watching players. I mean, I could give you a list of about 70 things that matter, and it's critical. And that's one of the things. If you want to be in the elite groups, you got to do those things. There is no doubt. And people don't. I don't mean this in any disregard. I don't think y'all really realize how the true elite programs, how much farther ahead they can be, and the resources matter. It's a tremendous, tremendous advantage and deal, and you got to commit to doing it, because if you, there's a reason they're doing the things they do, and my hat's off to them, because it's hard, but they've got the resources to do it, and they've developed it and gotten players and everything else, and the other schools are doing it, and we're into that. We're trying to get into that mode too. We're getting there. We're getting much closer in a lot of ways, and very proud of the things we've done. We've got a ton of things in place, and I think it's one of the most critical things there is in all of the sports that people don't have an idea about.
When you're negotiating a contract,
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. Yes. Yes. And I will hold them to it. You can bang on it.
Let's go left for this.
Jimbo, as a former quarterback yourself, I was curious what you remember about Jim Harbaugh as a quarterback, and also does the quarterback Michigan have remind you of toughness that Harbaugh had as a player?
Yeah, I mean, their guy's makes great decisions, accurate with the ball. I mean, you go out there and he had the major injury with the collarbone to come back a week later and play. I mean, I don't know what the injury was or the extent of it or anything. I mean, their guy's very tough. It's one of the great things about our quarterback, standing in there and taking the hits, and he's done. And which is a quarterback. I'm a believer in this. Your quarterback's not tough. Usually your team's not tough. That quarterback's not an ultimate. The guy leading the team is not one of those guys, and that's one of the toughest positions to play physically. People say, well, let me tell you what, stand back there and let 310-pound guys that run 4.5 hit you unblocked, and see how many times you can do it. I mean, you talk about linemen banging up, oh, that's great. Let them get a run at you, see what happens. Well, you're running the football, and you get it off, and you take the shots and the things that go on, the wear and tear, and you're on a body that's not as big as theirs. I mean, and I think that's what Jim was. Jim was a competitor. Jim was a first-round pick everywhere he went. I mean, he won in pro ball. He won in college ball. He was a great player. You can obviously tell he's coached them up very well with the decisions making, the accuracy. You know, he's really turned him into a heck of a player. And I think our guy does the same thing in that regard, as far as the toughness and things that create competitiveness within your team. And those guys get a respect for that. It's when that guy can stand back and do that, I got to do a little better in my job. And I think it inspires all of us.
Right.
Jimbo, Tim Reynolds again. You mentioned brands earlier. FSU.
I'm sorry?
You mentioned brands, or Michigan being a brand earlier.
Mm-hmm.
FSU, obviously a brand.
Mm-hmm.
Miami, Florida, brands, of course, that big three. And now you got coaches in the state that could be considered brands as well, with Lane and Charlie and Butch. Can recruiting in this state get any crazier than it already is or has been for a very long time with all those guys here now?
Well, I think all those guys, but you got to realize Florida's such a different state that everyone comes there to recruit. I mean, everybody. And in Florida, especially in the generation, I mean, I think you're getting a lot more native Floridians now. But back in the day, Florida was a state that was built on, as I say, an immigrant state, for lack of a better word. People moved down here to retire and play. And that's why so many kids leave and go back to Ohio State, leave and go back to Michigan, leave and go back up north. Because people, they have family, they have connections, they have people down here. That's what makes this state very, very unique. There's not a lot of states like Florida in that you have a lot of players, but they're not native people as much. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of connections out of the state and back, and that's why people say, well, you know, he should stay in Florida. Well, but he's got a grandmother, an aunt, an uncle, and everybody else, and they grew up watching Michigan or Ohio State or Penn State or whoever it may be up north. You know what I'm saying? Notre Dame, whoever, or out west or something like that, and then you get the brand name coaches who work it, and the programs here are very good. You know, Florida State, Florida, Miami, and all that. Now you got South Florida. Now you got UCF. Now you got FAU. You got FIU. I mean, you got Butch Davis. You got everybody. Charlie. I mean, it's crazy. There's no doubt about it. But Florida's always kind of been that way, just because of the number of players. You can't sign them all, and people have connections out of the state so much. It makes it a very challenging state to recruit.
Back out there.
Jimbo, Bob Winowski from the Detroit News. Because you're playing a team like Michigan in a recruiting-rich state, like you just mentioned, the state of Florida, does that add to the impact of a game like the Orange Bowl, or is the recruiting impact overstated in a game like this?
I don't think they're ever overstated, because success, kids want to play in successful programs. They want to play in these games and know they can be in these games. But the thing about it is there's so many players in the state of Florida, and some of them, they have to go somewhere. So maybe so. And I'm going to say this, 20, 25 years ago, I think it was even more impactful than it is now, because I think kids look at things differently. I say this earlier. Back in the day, you didn't mind going to Michigan or Florida State or wherever, you know, and you redshirted and you played as a redshirt sophomore, junior. Now, kids' mentality, where can I play? Where can I get on the field? And how you get me to the league? You know, I mean, we're wanting everything sped up so much. I think it's really changed, and kids see that if there's opportunities to play at a program, they want to go do it very quickly. It's just our culture. Everything's changed. I mean, everything in our culture's changed. It's changed that whole dynamic, but it's still impactful. That winning and being successful is still key.
We'll go right, left also.
Coach, if this is in fact Dalvin Cook's last game, can you just talk about what he's meant to this program and what it's been like to coach him at Florida State?
Well, I mean, Dalvin, I've always said this about him, for a great player, a high-profile guy, very unassuming in that, okay, what's my role? Didn't command, like the things I just talked about. He wanted to play early, but there wasn't no demands. There wasn't no coming up to your office, oh, Coach, I'm not getting enough carries. I'm not playing early. All right, let me just go to practice. Let me do whatever my role is. And he gradually built himself into that. And as a freshman, he ended up rushing for 1,000, but that didn't happen until later in the year. And then down here in Miami game his freshman year, he got a great break. He had 6 or 8 big runs and started that. And, you know, he played a backup role, but we had some great players, and he merged and really took over that role. But I mean, one of the greatest players I've ever coached, as far as the dynamic to change a game with every touch. And I mean, I think that's what you do when he touches the ball. You know that it's not just first downs. You know the numbers on the scoreboard can change. There aren't a lot of guys like that in ball. But then he does it with a great toughness, because he's an inside guy. He's very physical. But Dalvin's one of the guys who impacts his team with his work ethic, and can do it vocally or just by the way he goes about his business. He likes the game and everything about it. And what I mean by that is, a lot of guys like to play. Not a lot of guys like to go run, train, watch film, do all those things. He does. I mean, he's a workaholic. He's a gym rat. And they say, wait a minute, our best players out there doing extra sprints, doing extra running, doing extra film. It's hard for me not to do that. And I think he had a huge impact in that regard on our team. And I mean, he's one of the great players that ever played at Florida State. And I think one of the great backs. I mean, if he were to stay, he'd probably be one of the top 4 or 5 rushers in college football history. I mean, his numbers would be that good, and then the touchdowns and the dynamics and what he does it with. So, I mean, we're very blessed to have had him, and he's had a huge impact in our program. Huge.
We're going to have 2 more questions. How about I get?
I'm sure there's kind of a sense of, there's a period of acclamation when the Showtime camera is right here. Sorry, down there.
Okay, I'm sorry.
When the Showtime cameras showed up and started really filming every aspect of the team, do you expect it to be maybe a little weird after this when they're not around anymore?
Honestly, I don't know. We don't know one way or the other. And I know that sounds crazy. People don't believe that. I mean, it's just a routine what you do. We're around cameras and this stuff all the time. I mean, our kids, it's just part of it. They've been great. And one of the great things about them is you never noticed them. I mean, they just blended in with everything you did, and it was not a factor in the things you had. And I hope, people say, well, why did you do it? I always said this, I wanted people to understand, not only these kids are kids, but people think, well, man, they're great players, they're talented, they just show up and play. That what a life and what a day in their world is, and how much pressure's on them, and what it's like, how much work these guys really put in. and that they are human beings and they're kids just like your kids at home. And hopefully that in that series, those things came out about who they are and what they are as people. But honestly, those people did a tremendous job, and I think it was very beneficial, not just for us, I think for just college football in general.
One last question.
Hi, Jeremy Sloan, ESPN. Your offense, number one in red zone efficiency. How can you stay proficient against Michigan's defense, which is second?
Execute. Florida was number one when we played them too. I mean, I don't mean that in regard. I mean, but you're going to have to be sharp. As I say, situational football. They're great. In third down, they're second. I mean, we're going to get first down. We do a great job on third down too. But I think they do a great job of playing situational football. We do. If you're in these games, if you ever go, you can research it. Situational football, third downs, red zone, turnovers, those things. Teams are always very efficient in that. And we spend a lot of time in it. It's get down to one thing: you got to execute. You got to execute. Nothing's going to be given. At the end of the day, you got to make plays. I mean, you have to make a catch over somebody. You have to run through somebody. You have to make some blocks because they're not going to give you anything. They're tremendously well coached. Do a great job keeping leverage on the football, contesting every throw, every pass, every run. And it's going to get one execution. I mean, and I know that sounds simple, but it's true. You got to execute. You got to be precise in how you run a route or make a block or make a run and take advantage of it. And like I say, when you get an advantage and make a play, you better because you're not going to get a lot of them.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
This time, we'll line up Coach over here with photos with the trophy.
Like our videos? Then you'll love being a premium member of Warchant.com with exclusive access to breaking news, insight, and analysis from the best on the beat. Enter the promo code WARCHANT30 on our sign-up page and get exclusive premium access for free for the next 30 days. Warchant.com, your ultimate Seminole sports source.